Hey everybody, welcome to NewWayStories. We are a podcast about creativity. We are a podcast about comedy. It's not really about comedy. Well, it is sometimes about comedy, but we want to make you laugh. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it doesn't happen.
Most of the time.
But most of the time we do record, and that is what we do. And
we make Alex Guernsey laugh at least once a week.
That is true. I do love Alex Guernsey texts Darius and I, and he points out the bits that he laughed at, and I enjoy it. It's good affirmation for me.
Keep it going.
With that being said, we're happy that you're here. We're excited. We've got really a special guest. We're trying to do more guests. I hope you enjoyed Carl Champagne last week. But over the last week, there was a presidential election. I don't know if you heard about it or what. And, you know, we're not here to like pick sides or do anything like that. But we just we are here because, you know, to make the world a better place. We want to build the kingdom of God and through creativity. And so getting the projections of the future for America for the next 4 years is interesting to me. And so then we made a few calls. I had to I had to kind of pull some shady stuff to get the numbers, but I got them. Mm-hmm. Joe hooked me up.
Mr. Rogan.
Mr. Rogan. Sorry, we're on a first name basis.
The Rogue.
Going Rogue is what he should be.
Fitness.
That's what his podcast should be called. That was my second text to him. Hey, and I know like you're doing okay or whatever, but like it should be Going Rogue, right? With Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Which actually is an
Have you thought about doing an
description.
Have you thought about doing an endorsement, Joe? You get a hair transplant and you call it, for 1 week, you call it the Joe Rogan experience.
The Joe Rogan experience. I love it.
Feels like easy money.
Easy money. He turned down Mission Impossible Rogan 1, which was, I thought, that's pretty bold to turn it down, man. But we
Did you see my bathrobe? Where's my bathrobe? I'm going to take a shower.
We have the President of the United States.
President-elect.
The President-elect, sorry. The President-elect, former President and now President-elect on the podcast. He's gracious enough to give us 5 minutes. Mr. President, how you doing?
Oh, really quick. Can I cut in and say,
sorry.
I didn't realize that we were going to have the president on this podcast. In our conversation about having this podcast, I was very unclear that we were having the president on this podcast. So I was surprised and excited.
I like to surprise you. This was kind of a fun thing for Darius. You know, Darius, you just sit back and watch. Don't say anything.
You know what? I tell you what, while President-elect Trump talks, you probably won't hear from me at all.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be watching.
Don't even ask questions.
Yeah.
Don't. If you're listening to the podcast, don't watch the video portion of it. Just
the Secret Service had some rules.
Just listen.
Stop talking. I would stop talking right now. You're doing fine. But I would throw it over to me. Because I've got lots to say.
Let's throw it over.
I've got lots to do and lots to say. I've been having a few thoughts lately. One of them is losers. A lot of losers. There's many losers in America today. A lot of them previously were in the White House. Now they're adjacent to the White House. They're around the side. They're in a wheelchair in the back. Can't stand up on their own. Their names rhyme with Joe Biden.
So there's a lot of stuff on your campaign that, you know, quite frankly, I'm not super interested in. There were some fringe policies and stuff that
I didn't hear about it, and I was a big
really
supporter.
want to push through.
Sure.
And I'm excited about them. What's the first one that you want to kind of start getting out there?
Yep. A lot of people have been asking me, am I taking away all the rights? Am I taking away all the rights for all the people who are not white men? And I want to come out clearly. And say, yes, of course I am. Of course I am. That's what I came here for. That's a kid. That's a joke. Just joking. Me and Joe Rogan did it. Just telling jokes.
If you're taking the rights away, it means that everyone has to then turn left on the street. Isn't that going to back up traffic?
Yeah.
They'll be going in circles. I was one of the first to do the circles. I was one of the first to ever draw them. People used to do squares.
You're just talking about circles in general, not roundabouts.
On the pizzas, I told all of them, I told the round table, what about Little Caesars? And Little Caesars did it first with the squares and the edges and the rounds and the dominoes and the pizzas. And that's a lot of where we got. One of the policies I'd like to enact is called the World's Fair again. The world was no longer fair. In 2020, it wasn't fair. It was never fair to me. It wasn't fair to the voters. It wasn't fair to the comfortable party that we had on January 6th. They called us a lot of names, but what we really were was friends. And now again in 2024, the world is fair again. So I'm going to like to reinstitute the World's Fair.
Really? This was something that you did just announce, which I feel like we're going to talk. We should get into that a little bit more. I think let's hear a few more policies just real quick. That you want to institute.
Of course. I would like to institute a policy called Fall is Longer, where no one ever has enough time for Halloween. We start fall. We started in August. And
then it's immediately Christmas.
Yeah, that's what I would say, and I'm not too clear about it, but I'm pretty sure everyone would like it if fall was longer. So we're talking to the climate change people.
Everyone loves the colors,
right?
You're just gonna make it longer.
Yep, I'm talking to the climate change people. They said I wouldn't play ball with the climate changers, but I am. I'm asking them to change the climate. I'm asking them straight up. I'm saying you've got full funding. So you got as much money as you want to change it.
I just want to kind of wrap my mind around this because I love the idea. I mean, fall is like sweater weather. It's my favorite time. Do you take away from summer? Do you take away from winter? Do you add a whole new month? Are we a 13-month calendar year?
Of course. And they're saying that I can't do it, but we all know that I can. Good question.
I mean, it seems like not that hard to just add a calendar month.
We'll see if we'll call it Trump month, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have January, February, March, April, May, Trump month.
Trumptober?
Trump month. Trumptober is already taken. Trumptober is what we call it at Mar-a-Lago. That's what we call October already. No need.
A big Trump or treat event at a lot of churches this year. Yeah. That was a lot of fun. Kids dress up.
Of course. Yes, because the kids love me. The Christians, they love me. I'm their favorite.
Well, the extending fall, I think that's full funding for climate change. That is
full funding for climate change.
Yeah. That's a bit of a left turn. Well, so all right, Mr. Trump, I know you have to go. Thank you so much for giving just a little bit of time to NewWayStories and thanks. I don't know.
Of course.
Have you officially endorsed the podcast, or is that?
Yes, I would say there's only one podcast for me, and that's the True Crime Girls. They're so good. They're so good. Come on. And my favorite.
They are my favorite. Out of all the murders, they are my favorite.
They love to find the murders. I'm always nice to see old friends. And just kidding. And also NewWayStories. NewWayStories is a good podcast. It's a great podcast. Wow. I only said, why don't we call it NewWayStories? And they said, we'll stick with New Way. So there we are.
There we are. And you can suck it, Joe Rogan. We're the podcast.
Yeah.
We're the number one podcast. All right. Thank you, Mr. President. I think that one of the coolest things that we have.
Wow, that was amazing. I'm so glad I got to watch that whole thing.
Yeah. The World's Fair, which let's
crazy.
We kind of want to talk about. We heard Trump announce that earlier this week. We kind of want to talk about the World's Fair. We kind of got excited about this idea.
I had never heard of it.
You've never heard of the World's Fair before?
Yes.
Oh, he wanted to. Sorry.
Also,
wait, Ben, we've been talking about it for a week or a day, whatever it was.
I will real quick.
Yeah.
I will say it was an older announcement that has just resurfaced, and the governor of Iowa reinforced, hey, I think we'll still go forward with this.
Yeah. Well, Iowa is an interesting choice. to do it. I do think maybe they have enough area to build it as big as you want without affecting anybody.
Yeah. I just for the fact checkers, I know we agreed to no fact checking.
Yeah.
But just to get that out of the way, it was an older that had resurfaced.
Okay, that's good to know.
Oh,
but
interesting.
But it's out there, and he wants to do it in 2027.
Yes.
Right. Which is just kind of.
That would be cool.
I think in today's world, it definitely can happen. Right. Do something that fast. In the old days, it was 2 years of like people working nonstop to like pull this thing off.
Yeah.
Right. And so he's just like, yeah, I think I have this idea. That'll happen. It'll happen out there. And so World's Fairs, we kind of think about them. I'm going to do just a slight history, of World's Fairs.
Yes.
If you try to Wikipedia it says that the first World's Fair was in like 1791, right? And I think it's just
crazy.
This concept of a fair where you put on display a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But then I found this article in the Smithsonian magazine that kind of talked about the World's Fairs that we all know about
When we think about it.
right? When we think about the World's Fair, and the writer of this article said the World's Fairs are split up into three areas. So you got the industrialization, so 1851 to 1938. That's inside of that is like Paris's World Fair where they put up the Eiffel Tower.
Ooh, Paris.
And then
Freaking French, man.
the cultural exchange from 1939 to 1987. And that is just, that back then you still didn't have a ton of people traveling the world, right? Like world travel was still fairly rare. And so when you bring in all of these cultures or like wherever the fair is hosted, you're like kind of putting your culture on display for everyone to see and experience it. And then you also have all these other cultures as well that people get to experience without having to travel all the way around the world. And then you got the last one, which is called Nation Branding, 1988 to present, so World's Fairs are still technically happening, but we just don't really hear about them as much.
Oh, interesting.
Because they're in other countries. The last one that America hosted was in Louisiana in 84, I think they said.
Oh, interesting.
And before that, it was Spokane, and before that was Seattle. We know the 1962 World's Fair.
Super cool.
We can get into that a little bit, but it's this really cool concept, and there's a lot of rich history. I always pitch this book, The Devil in the White City. It's about America's like first serial killer, but also about the Chicago World's Fair and how they intertwine, and it's interesting true crime stuff, but also like really interesting history on the Chicago World's Fair. But I want to just talk about this real quick before we get into kind of some more of the history or some of the more fun things. They stopped doing World's Fair because they say that other mediums have overtaken it. So TV, you have the internet, right, is a big one. But even before the internet,
the internet's gotten big.
Even before the internet, you had like staple theme parks, right? So you now have Disneyland, you now have Disney World, Epcot, right? And Epcot is kind of like
a perpetual World's Fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Darius and I were talking about Disney and his influence in the World's Fair, but Disney, he would travel around the world and take the ideas back to his parks.
Los Angeles.
What's the the Matterhorn, right? So that's the Matterhorn is an actual mountain peak in the Swiss Alps. So when he traveled to the Swiss Alps, right back whenever he did, he was taken with this mountain. He goes, "Oh my gosh, like this is incredible." So he made the Matterhorn so that people can experience it.
So
he goes,
cool.
"You know what would make this roller coaster better?
Cultural appropriation.
Not this roller coaster. What would make this mountain? What would make this mountain better? Put a roller coaster on it." And that's what he did.
That's what he did. I was going to say, next time you get offended by some kind of small cultural appropriation, remember, no one has culturally appropriated your mountain. yet.
I mean,
The master.
It's really, it's a small world after all. So,
Nice.
but I just wanted to speak real quickly to the idea that because you see stuff on the internet or on TV or whatever, in our minds, we're like, well, yeah, we know about other people's cultures now, so we don't really like need to experience it. And I understand the logic behind it, but I disagree with it because since I've been traveling a lot recently, I was just telling Kate about this. Like, I go and I experience these different like flavors in coffee or food or whatever, and then I come back to Yakima and I want to like have people experience it, right? I go, you've never even heard of this flavor combo before, and now I'm gonna like have you over so you
Pineapple,
can also
broccoli.
Exactly. Like I'm gonna have you over so you can also experience it. But going to places, experiencing Cajun food in New Orleans, or a beignet in New Orleans, you're like, this is amazing. And I've had beignets before. Not in New Orleans.
Better in New Orleans.
They're better in New Orleans. Actually, the best beignet that I've ever had is at the bottom of Queen Anne Hill. It is great. Toulouse, Petit. It's a French Cajun restaurant. So much fun. But being in the French Quarter, experiencing those things, like just experiencing new stuff is way better, way more enriching than like watching it on TV or watching it
YouTube
on a YouTube clip. So I think that
or not to be like mean to Disney, but it's like different. It's better than visiting Epcot.
Right, totally. Well, and I think that there's stages, right?
Like,
I think that you can learn about it and you go, that's super interesting. But then you got the World's Fair sort of concept or Epcot. The World's Fair hopefully is you bring in people, these people from all around the world so that you can kind of get a real slice of what they are, more so than in audio animatronics. Dressed up slightly like you go, I think I've got the concept of China now.
You get to Mexico and you're like, where are the three caballeros?
I thought that I knew Mexican culture, but
there's less anthropomorphic birds here than I expected.
I think you learn about it. I think at a theme park or a World's Fair, you get a taste of it. You get it. The wonder is a little more. It's sparked a little more. But then actually traveling and visiting is on another level. Like actually being inundated into the culture. Is a whole nother experience.
Doing a World's Fair would be very cool because people bring their culture to you.
Yeah. So, but then here's the other thing about the World's Fair, and we're a podcast on creativity, is it inspires people to be innovative and to create and to give them a platform to show off what they're doing. Right? So you have, when you're talking about the Eiffel Tower, right? It's in the industrialization era. It's this architecture wonder that you're like, this is insane. It's beautiful and it's never been seen before. And
they probably had to invent technology that did not yet exist just to build it.
Exactly. And so I think like we talk about the space race, right? It's this idea of vision and saying, hey, let's go accomplish something. And then you have to stuff had to be invented. Like Velcro had to be invented for astronauts, right? Tang had to be invented for astronauts. Or like Lucasfilm, like if we take it back to George Lucas would have ideas and he'd go, I want to do this.
I just don't know how.
Now go invent the technology and software. And sometimes it wasn't till 8, 9, 10 years later, they go, hey, we finally got something. Do you still want to do that idea? And it's like this vision. And so the World's Fair,
let's go back and ruin the original trilogy by remastering them.
Can you do that? You go, anything you want, George.
Yeah. Anytime I get the chance to sing it on the pod, I will.
That's funny.
So,
Ben, have you seen online where people have said Lawrence, my favorite band, sounds like that band from the remaster of episode 4?
I think I saw a
see
clip
that.
of them of performing that. Did they not?
And so then, a lot
episode
of people
6,
started trolling them.
Yes.
And say that again.
Episode
Sorry, I thought
6,
that was an
right?
episode. Why am I thinking that's episode 4?
In Jabba,
Return of the
not the
Jedi.
Cantina band.
I'm so right.
They're
You're right.
entertaining Jabba and his thugs.
I'm so dumb. I apologize to all Star Wars fans and nerds everywhere.
Everything
for
you
all
were
time.
gonna say lost
Stupid.
all sort of credibility.
Lost it all. Lost a lot of credibility.
Oh, is Don still back there?
If I
Is he still back there?
Yeah, sorry.
if I could have helped it, it would have been episode 4.
But yeah, enough people like trolled them online, and people were actually being like really hateful to some of their music, and it just turned into this huge thing. And finally, they were like, "Okay, well, we're just gonna perform this song and troll the haters," and it's one of my favorite things.
That's
I saw a clip of
amazing.
it, yeah.
That's so funny.
Sorry, you were talking.
I've been pumping Lawrence through Northtown Titans location.
Lawrence is the greatest band of all time.
It's fun. They're great, man. It's
At
funky.
least the greatest
it's
band of
upbeat.
our time.
So yeah, man, the kind of inspiration to say, hey, let's get creative, let's get innovative,
Yeah.
and then let's show it off to people and like get everybody to come to Iowa. When was the last time a mass
Everybody
group of
went
people was like, let's go to Iowa? Maybe
believe it was
Field
the
of
Vikings.
Dreams.
Is maybe, yeah.
Is that in
It was
Iowa?
I believe it was when the original Vikings invaded Newfoundland, and they said maybe they should go all the way to
Let's
Iowa.
Take it to 1-1. It is in Iowa.
Let's go a
isn't it?
little
Yeah,
farther
that
inland.
okay. It makes sense now because now Trump can just say the World's Fair. Hey, if we build it, they will come. Like it's gonna happen.
Actually,
I didn't think through it enough.
I'm pretty sure that he quoted that in the video, in the promo. In
Okay,
the answer.
amazing. I mean, you could build it around the Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
Like it's already built.
It's there for, yeah.
Yeah.
It's there for the taking.
So amazing. All right. Here's some.
The great thing about the World's Fair is they won't need to have security because they're just going to build a big old wall around it.
Exactly. It's just a long con to be like, well, this is kind of the wall that I was thinking of. This is to scale, and it's just America inside of Iowa, and then actually the surrounding states are Canada and Mexico.
Yeah, it's become Canada
There's
and
an-
Mexico.
There's an actor
You could go if you want.
Kamala Harris, and he's just knocking over buildings, just Godzillaing the whole thing.
Rampage. That's just rampage with amazing. Amazing. All right, so here's some fun stuff about the World's Fair that maybe you knew about, maybe you didn't know.
Okay.
Yes.
Like I said, Paris in 1891, they had the Eiffel Tower. That was a big one. The one that I read Devil in the White City, and then living in Chicago, I really fell in love with that World's Fair. I think we maybe have talked about it before, but just real quick, the Ferris wheel. That's where they go, hey, we got to top the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
How are we going to do
Yeah.
it? And it's the Ferris wheel. And this Ferris wheel was actually like a 6-person, you had like a fancy meal in it.
Oh.
And it was so well built. They had a hot air balloon as well that people could get up and they go up in it and bring it back down. There was a crazy windstorm one time.
It's called a hot air balloon actually because they had a makeout closet in there.
They
This air balloon is hot.
So they pull the hot air balloon down and they go, oh my gosh. The people, they shut a lot of stuff down and they go, the people in the Ferris wheel are going to die. This is going to be tragic. It's terrible. And then the people finish and they go, oh, how was that? That was the craziest wind that we've ever felt. And they go, oh, we didn't even know it was windy. It was so well built.
That's
They
nuts.
thought that it was gonna. They thought that it was going to, craziness.
Collapse.
Yeah, collapse. Also, my favorite thing. So there, in some of these cultural World's Fairs, they have what they call so it's the spoils of colonialism often took center stage, and they created human zoos, which is terrible, but also kind of hilarious.
Human zoos, you mean corporate offices?
It's well played, Ben. One of my favorite things.
I missed it. What did you say?
He said human zoos. You mean corporate offices? One of my favorite things.
The big man's keeping us trapped.
One of my favorite things in the Chicago World's Fair is Burnham, the guy who was putting it on, heard about these like a pygmy like tribe in Africa, and he goes,
yes.
He sent like the 4 fastest sailors out. He goes, you better get me pygmies here at this World's Fair. It didn't happen, unfortunately. They couldn't find them. But I just love the audacity to go, if they're out there, I mean, we've gotta feature like 5 or 6 pygmies.
What's crazy is like he didn't like see a YouTube video of them. He didn't call someone and was like, "Oh, you say there's pygmies there."
Dude,
he heard about them.
They heard a
Maybe
rumor.
saw a picture and was like, "There's a rumor. There's these tiny people over in Africa. Take the faster ships and don't come back till you got a little person with you."
And they probably came back like so sorry. They felt so sorry. They go, "We let you down. Mm-hmm. How could we have done this?"
There's no tracking devices, so they just went out in the middle of the ocean. They're like, "This guy's a lunatic."
They just sailed around a little bit. Go, "Hey, sorry, Burnham, couldn't find him." He goes, "Did you look under every rock?"
Well, did you check Africa?
Oh yeah. We were
looked.
We were there. You've been gone a week. Are you sure? So they wanted fresh spring water in Chicago. From Wisconsin, and they're like, "Hey, can we build a pipe from Wisconsin to Chicago?" And they were like, "Absolutely not. You can't do that. Why? Like, that's insane." Stupid. And so what they did was for a ton of nights during the night, they dug and built, and it was in the ground, and they go, "Oh, dude, sorry." And so then people for $1 or for I think it was actually a dime, they could get like fresh spring water straight from. Like, turn the tap, and it's like, this water's from Wisconsin.
No sanitation guidelines.
No, not at all.
No, like guidelines or requirements. This is one of those times where the federal government is not that bad of a thing.
It's you go maybe some regulations. Maybe some
regulation on the water you're selling.
So a lot of wild stuff. Also at the World's Fair, cream of wheat. Maybe you've heard of it. That's where it was introduced. The zipper. Not the fair ride. I know it's confusing because we were talking about the Ferris wheel, but literally the zipper. No more button flies. And Pabst Blue Ribbon, the beer is called Blue Ribbon because it won Best New Beer at the Chicago World's Fair from Milwaukee. Next World's Fair that I think is fun to talk about is the New York World Fair. That was in... early 60s, right?
Yeah. Early 1960s?
Yes, early 1960s.
We were just on 1964, right?
Yep, and this is where Disney had a big portion. Darius, I'm gonna flip it over to you.
I didn't do any research.
Perfect.
I am sick right now, so all the things that happened yesterday, I barely remember. I am so sorry.
That's okay. This was where Disney brought in the first like audio animatronics, right? So Abe Lincoln, this is a fun trivia for you. First human that was portrayed as like a audio animatronic. Abe Lincoln. They did the whole thing, and it was because of the World's Fair that like they were already working on Pirates at the time, but they had to put a pause on it. But all of this technology was really like driven by the World's Fair. They're like, "Hey, Disney, can you do this like huge, segment?" And they created these animatronics. And so out of the World's Fair, that's where they had Small World like at the World's Fair. They like shipped it. And then and then it was put in Disney after the World's Fair happened. A lot of the audio animatronics are from Pirates, was in this exhibit. And honestly, even today, some of it's been like, updated or upkept, but it's like still the same technology that they had back in the 60s that we are still enjoying today.
They just reopened Tiana's Bayou Adventure, Splash Mountain.
Oh, yeah.
And the new animatronics from it are crazy, especially the alligator. If you haven't seen clips of I forget the alligator's name in that movie.
I've never actually seen that movie. I really want to watch it.
It's really great. And same thing with Tiana. Like, they sort of nailed...
it's good. It's funny.
The mouth. That was always the tricky part.
Right. It's just like up and down, yeah.
And so they did it's really cool. If you haven't seen clips of the new ride, it's super cool what they did.
I want to go on it real bad.
Let's buy one day, go to Disneyland, 1 day ticket, ride the ride, and then come back.
Just come right back.
Yep.
Honestly, man,
that'd be so much fun.
When Kate did her boards, the day after we went, flew down, we left, I think, at 6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the park by 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a quick flight.
Yeah, you flew into John Wayne Airport in Orange County, and so it's not that far of a drive to the hotel. You drop your bags off. You can't check in yet. It's too early, so you just do bag check, and then you go into the park, and then you have you can do a 2 full day or 3 full day, like from Friday to Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
did you guys stay on the property?
Yeah, we stayed. We stayed in the. I always want to call it the Great Northern.
That's right. You did the Grand Californian. The Great
Grand
Northern.
California.
I'm going to go to Salish Lodge this winter. We just finished Twin Peaks.
Nice.
Anyway.
Yes, where you get the back entrance into California Adventure, which is right by the tube, which is great because my hat got knocked off on the Grizzly Mountain ride. And so I was like, hey, I'm just going to run into my hotel really quick and grab another hat. And I could do that. It was not that big of a deal.
So nice.
And especially for that one, you get to dodge all the main lines and you just walk through. It's so great. So New York World's Fair, you can thank them for a lot of Disneyland attractions and just, I mean, and what a smart move on New York's part to have Disney create this huge area. It's
kind of
let's
cool
just
the way
hand
that
over the
way
greatest
that it,
creative mind to create this really cool interactive space. And he's like, cool, done.
Well, that is the cool. I do know, even though I forgot to do my research last night, the way that it did happen is, yes, New York got Disney to do it for free, and Disney did it because they went to different companies and were like, will you sponsor this attraction?
Yeah.
For us to make it the World's Fair. And so then that company would pay Disney, and then New York got it. It's a cool economic principle is all I'm saying. It's when you, you're saying,
I think they got the state of
creativity.
The reason Lincoln was the first president is because they got the state of Illinois to fund that specific, because it's the land of Lincoln. And what's his name's home state? Walt Disney.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool stuff. He was always a huge Abe Lincoln. Abe Lincoln was always his favorite president, which is cool. But anyway, I think that's a really cool economic principle. If we do creative things and we do things that we don't know how we're going to get the means to do them, obviously there's always a huge risk associated with that, but it's high risk, high reward. And when you get creative people working together, then Disney's benefiting. They're increasing the economy in California where they live because of their participation in the World's Fair. New York is benefiting from it financially. Illinois is benefiting from it financially. So, and then GE is benefiting from it financially, and General Motors is benefiting from it financially. And it's cool because when creativity has a power that just economics in products in industrialization doesn't have inherently, which is it energizes people.
Yeah. I was just talking to somebody that they are like using art, like art conventions, but also using art to like kind of beautify an alleyway or something like that. It's like it's a cheap way to one, you can kind of build buildings not so intricate, but then you put like cool art on them, and then people are like, oh, what an amazing like build. So it like saves money. But these like art huge art conventions in like the kind of Cincinnati just had one where they kind of reveal a whole bunch of stuff, and it was a greater economic impact than like a lot of things. And so it's like, oh, that's like art serves a purpose, you know, like it can serve a natural purpose is what I'm trying to say. I think the World's Fair is kind of this mesh between creativity and capitalism, and it kind of goes together where you're like, hey, we just want to support people who are being creative and innovative and give them
spotlight them.
Platform, spotlight them. But the things that are around it, yes, you're selling tickets to get into the World's Fair, but you're not like, it's not like this selling sort of like driven thing, right? The purpose is to highlight art, but because of that, or highlight innovations, and because of that, Iowa like is going to like have such a great impact from it. But then other people make money off of it. It's just I think it's just good.
Yes.
All the way around.
So some of the stuff. So it's going to be called the Great American State Fair in Iowa. It will
naturally.
It will feature pavilions from all 50 states. So he wants all 50 states to come together, bring the best what they got, what they've been innovative on.
We're gonna just bring creations. The FFA booth from the Central Washington State Fair. It'll just be that for Washington.
Yeah.
It's just couple Apple displays, a hop.
That's what we got.
A hop thing.
That's all we got.
40% of your pairs, you're welcome. That's cool.
So,
well, that's that is a microcosm of one of my goals. Is I want to visit every state eventually in my lifetime, and so it's kind of cool that you can like. I think I've been to Iowa. I think I had to drive through Iowa.
How could you have not? Isn't Illinois and Iowa right next to each other?
They're right next to each other. But you like kind of go above Iowa, I think. But I think I have driven through it. But I could go to Iowa, definitely knock that off the list. But then I could visit, you could visit all the 50 states without actually having to visit every state. You thank God I don't have to go to Florida now. No offense, Carl.
No offense, Florida?
No.
Offense, Florida.
Offense,
I love
Florida. Yeah, man, that's cool. That would be insane.
So we're
also,
excited.
just real quick, 1962, we mentioned it. It's all about the space race, right?
Heck yeah.
This was like JFK just announced, like, hey, we're going to the moon, baby.
Oh, I thought you were going to say just assassinated.
No, that not yet assassinated. 63, I believe, is 11.
Too bad.
November. We might be coming up on the anniversary. I think it was in November of 63.
You're spot on.
What day was it? 11/22.
You are spot on.
Yeah, there's a Stephen King novel called 11/22. So the Space Needle, which was from the World's Fair.
Whoa!
So if you go up to,
we'll bring it. We'll bring it back.
We'll bring it back. Yeah, we'll bring it. So if you go to the Space Needle, it was like the centerpiece of the World's Fair. It was our Eiffel Tower, and it is like I was reading a thing about it. They were like, it looked like a spaceship. People were like, this looks like a spaceship that just like landed here. But the architecture and the like physics of how the Space Needle is a thing, because it's so tall and so narrow, its foundation is like, it has to be dug crazy deep to make it happen. It actually is a bit of a marvel. I mean, architecture. We're gonna talk about it soon.
Yes, because I have some things to say.
Ben's got some beef with new age architecture, but like
Specifically fast food.
fast food architecture. It's a very niche rant that he's gonna get in on. But some of the stuff that like was built thousands of years ago, I'm like, this is insane. And then even in 1960, you go, man, you guys built this in 1960? Like, I don't know why I think every person is incapable of doing. I think it's because I know so little about architecture that anything outside of 30 years ago that someone built something incredible, I'm like, what? Like, I don't know. I don't know how you did it.
That is legit how it feels. Like, yeah, the Eiffel Tower thing is still blowing my mind. Sorry, I was gone for a second. I had to fix my audio settings.
No, you are okay. I was talking a whole lot.
It was good stuff.
I could hear you. I just couldn't talk.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. It's just it's fascinating to me. I'm gonna read a book in
Read a book.
Join the club.
Because I do like.
Club. Sorry,
I read the book about Chicago's World's Fair and a lot of the Disney behind the attraction. Which, if you haven't watched that on Disney
really
Plus,
good.
It's really awesome. What's her name's commentary narration is not always the greatest, but
yeah, it's fun.
I was gonna say I love the ones on YouTube where it's just like, here are the deaths that have happened at Disneyland.
There's a whole My Favorite Murder episode dedicated to Disneyland deaths. Most of it is like, don't stand up on the Matterhorn. It doesn't go well.
Or
which I feel like I'm gonna get decapitated not standing up. So like obviously I'm not gonna try to stand up.
Paget Brewster?
Paget Brewster, yeah. She's Criminal Minds.
She's good.
But the reason I mean there's some real like corny jokes, which I understand what they're trying to do. The producer of it though is The Rock, because they did the Jungle Cruise movie.
It's always so weird like to see this Dwayne Johnson credit there.
Right, yeah, it's like executive producer Dwayne Johnson. But it's a great idea though. Like, what's the backstory behind these? And the Jungle Cruise one is awesome. Like I don't just
watching it.
The World's Fair. I feel like the World's Fair and the regular fair, Disneyland.
And the Yakima State Fair.
And the Central Washington State Fair. Lest we forget. I just feel like for Disneyland, for Iowa, you look at this blank canvas.
Yeah.
And you say, this is what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
Right? And even on the Jungle Cruise, he's like, we're going to get real animals. We're going to have lions and rhinoceroses
tigers
here.
And bears.
And then they go, well, they actually sleep all the time. He goes, all right, cool. That's fine. We'll do animatronics.
We'll make our own.
Yeah, we'll make our own. You can't stop me.
And they never sleep.
Create
but it's like,
androids.
it's in Orange Grove. And then they're like putting in all this foliage. They're literally driving up and down I-5 because they're like taking out, this is when the interstate project is happening, right? Eisenhower's interstate project. And so now they have I-5 and they're taking out all these trees, and they go, you know what? They're taking out all these trees. Let's just drive up and down and see whatever cool tree we can find that looks exotic, and we put it all in the World's Fair, in the Jungle Cruise.
The Jungle Cruise. That's
just
nuts.
That sort of stuff that you're just like, we got this idea. How are we going to accomplish it? Let's do it. Yeah. And we're at the very beginning of that, where you go, the World's Fair is going to happen. And if it happens in 2027, which I really hope it does, I will go to it.
That sounds super cool.
I will go to it. Count me in.
Vacation.
It will also be
an awesome vacation.
I believe. So it's the 250th anniversary of the United States of America.
Yes.
Oh, never mind. It's next year. I was going to say another reason the Olympics will be held in Los Angeles the next time the Summer Olympics, and whoever the president
that
is,
should be the 250th in 2026, right?
2027, I believe. No, 2026. Yes.
Yes, but it's for. I think they're going to do kind of the World's Fair 1893, but they launched it in 1892, called it the Columbian Exposition, because he sailed the ocean blue in 1492.
Got it.
But I think it probably will be something similar where they launch it at the end of 26 and then it goes through 27.
Either way,
Poxcorn, get your Poxcorn. I'm so sorry. It sounds like you're saying Poxcorn. Yeah. Columbus. It's Columbus corn. I'm kidding.
Oh, that's, it happened.
The point I'm trying to make, there'll be like 3. You got the state fair, the Great American State Fair, the Summer Olympics here in the U.S., and the 250th anniversary within like a 1 or 2 year period.
Oh yeah,
which will be just a crazy time.
I also really want to go to the Los Angeles
Summer Olympics.
Like that would be so much fun.
Crazy time.
Well, I think that we've run our course on World's Fairs things. It's if you haven't looked up the history on them, I highly recommend it. It is fun, and just again, it's just like this national/world stage where it's promoting innovation and creativity. I think mostly for unity to like bring people together, but also to, what's the MGM? They have a they have a Latin phrase, art for art's sake.
Creatia artist or something like that.
Yeah,
there you go.
And it's translated to art for art's sake. I think
cool.
like we have innovation and creativity, and it's going to be art for art's sake. But when you do that,
ars gratia artis.
When you do that, like other things happen, right? It's, if you go, I'm going to do this so I can make a ton of money, you probably aren't creating the coolest like thing. But when you do art for art's sake, these other kind of cool things begin to happen. You can make a living out of it. You can boost the economy. You can, bare minimum, just like create an experience for somebody.
Just have a fun time. I'm excited to see what comes from there. Because I don't know. There's probably some dude in some corner of a state that we don't really talk about a lot that has a crazy idea.
Elon, man. Yeah. Like gonna do like the first Transformer. He'll be there.
Yes, he probably would. Just for the fun.
We talked about it. All these Tesla trucks are gonna show up in Iowa, and then it's gonna be Optimus Prime.
Optimus Prime, but instead of the voice of Optimus Prime, it's the voice of Jordan Peterson.
Let's hear it.
I mean, I could
stop the Decepticons.
I could just.
We're bloody well not gonna let them take over the world, are we?
I mean.
It's very Irish.
Picture Trump not announcing that, but like pitching it to Elon, right? You go, hey, we're going to have the World's Fair 2027. It would be great. The first ever electrically charged Optimus Prime.
I'd like to bring up the trans issue again. The Transformer issue. It's been talked about. It's been talked about a lot, but it hasn't been talked about enough.
Oh boy, I want to go further into that, but I won't. But I won't.
Because unity.
I mean, it's funny. Again, it's funny.
I'm not trying to make light.
I think it's funny. I think it's funny because of the concept that Donald Trump actually doesn't get the trans issue at all.
They've explained it to him.
I've always been.
Listen. I backed Transformers 1. I don't know what more I can do. We stopped talking about him in the 80s. Michael Bay, he's tried. Kind of got off the rails. Elon is the next.
He's like, did you see Age of Extinction? Did you see? I thought we were done with it.
They put a name on it.
Made a huge impact.
They put a name on it, and they said Transformers Age of Extinction,
they're gone.
And I won't stand for it because I want justice for all Transformers.
Obviously, we're not the first people to do a Transformers bit.
I don't know.
It's really funny.
We might be. I have not.
We're the innovators.
I have not made jokes before because I go, this person's definitely heard that before, and then I ask them. I go, I was going to make this joke. But you've heard that a billion times, and they go, I've never heard that before in my life. And I go, you gotta try it. You gotta try it. All right, guys. Thank you for listening to New Way Stories. Go out. Don't wait for a World's Fair.
Yeah.
Be creative. Be innovative. Be funny. We should have our own Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered Like that's what they say at the end.
Yeah.
That's what they say at the end of every My Favorite Murder.
We should just start saying that.
We should say
Completely
Just steal it.
co-opt
We
The
should-
Nerdist podcast, they always had enjoy your burrito. I'm trying to think.
I was
going
gonna
to
say
funny.
stay murdered and don't get sexy.
Well, Ben, we're trying to be helpful. We'll come up with something. I was just talking the other day that like slogans and catchphrases are my specialty. So I'm gonna put my mind to it. But until then, make sure you subscribe, follow, all that
I call
good
him
stuff.
Joe Slogan.
Right in NewWayStoriesPod@gmail.com. And until next week, stay sexy and don't get murdered.
Dang it.